Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca and I will be giving my video presentation on the paper I wrote of who I would want to be my pastor, Augustine or Pelagius. To start off, Augustine and Pelagius were two very influential early Christian teachers who had very different views on Christianity and its doctrine. Pelagius believed that free will and action are entirely our own and God's grace does not help us in these areas, while Augustine believed that all sin begins in choice and ends in slavery if God does not intervene to stop us. Pelagius argued that we have the power to stop the cycle of sin, then God will help us in our walk, while Augustine believed that we can't do anything to save ourselves. So, looking at these two, if I had the choice, I would prefer Augustine to be my pastor. So, growing up and being in a Christian home and growing up in church, as I learned and gained more knowledge, I began coming to the conclusion that I believe Christians are saved and predestined by God. And in this sense, I found myself agreeing more with the teachings of Augustine. Augustine argues that God must intervene in a sinner's life to save him from his life of sin. And as I was reading this, I was reminded of Paul's journey to Christ, where Paul was stopped on the road of Damascus and God intervened in his life. And this would not have happened if it was up to Paul to come to the conclusion. God had to intervene in his life on his own. And this agrees with Augustine's beliefs that sin begins with choice and ends with slavery because God intervened in his life and saved him. Augustine's view of sin and God's grace continued to form his doctrine of predestination. And he believed that through grace, God saves people even though they don't have the ability to save themselves. And he continues to justify this doctrine, stating that everyone sins, and we are all born with a sinful nature, therefore we are not good. Pelagius believed that people lived good lives without the law, and this shows proof of goodness in their human nature. And he continued to argue that Christ died for all, not just the ones who are saved. While this might seem unfair at first, Augustine argues that instead of seeing it as unfair, we should look at salvation as an undeserved gift that one should be thankful for. Pelagius continues to say that our will is good and that God helps us by showing us what to do and pouring love into us, but ultimately we have the free choice to choose salvation. I disagree with this belief because it makes God look like someone who is just nudging a person in the right direction, rather than purposefully intervening in a sinner's life and choosing them and adopting them into the family of believers. I would want Augustine to be my pastor because I believe his teachings are more aligned with scriptures than the teachings of Pelagius. According to Augustine, this gift of salvation should be received with gratefulness, understanding that it is not by our own works that we are saved. Romans 5:11 says, "We even boast in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have now received reconciliation." Pelagius argues that God teaches us and shows us how to receive salvation so that it can be received by our own efforts. This would contradict scriptures because it would bring glory to ourselves, saying that we were the ones who chose God. God didn't choose us. I think believing in the doctrine of predestination, as Augustine said, it gives Christians a sense of hope that their salvation is secured. And instead of looking at it from the perspective that God is unjust for not saving people, we should think of it as God having so much grace and mercy on us that we should be saved even though we don't deserve it.